everyone was screaming and holding their faces, and then it's like you didn't want to look back because you didn't know what was behind you. And so we were just running, not even knowing where we were going.
A man about 35 years old, covered with soot, carrying an attaché case, looked like the lawyer type, was walking around in a circle, and I said to him, you look like you're in shock, why don't you step up in the ambulance? And he said, no, I'm all right. And okay, he said he was all right, and he started to do it again, and I said, no, I grabbed him by the arm and says, you have to go in the ambulance, be smart. And as he stepped up and back in the ambulance, he just slipped out of my hand and he just died on the floor.
I remember telling a couple of people with cameras to get as close as they could. And that sort of may not, looking back on it on hindsight, may have been a great idea. But I was, the news instinct is to get there, get to the scene, talk to people, but this was going to be a different scene. When the second plane hit, I remember trying to tell people when I could on the cell phone or on the Nextel, think about safety now. Maybe you shouldn't get as close as you can. And it turns out to me maybe that was a good thing, because when that first tower fell, I thought I had killed a whole bunch of my colleagues.
It was one of the most surreal experiences as a person and even as a journalist, because it's one of these things you hear about, you see on television, you see in movies, you probably even read about. But to be there, to actually see it, smell it, feel it, even taste it, it's surreal, it's unimaginable. It's something that I felt that was completely out of my reach. And I see a guy on a gurney, and I start filming that, them strapping him up. He has a neck brace on. They bring him down to the front of the steps now. And we're still on Barclay and Church, which is about a block and a half from where the towers were. In the gurney, he has the neck brace on. His eyes like pop open. So when I look up, all I saw was smoke. I head down the block, running. I didn't think about anything about the camera, the shot. I'm just thinking to get the hell out of there, because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's coming down. All I see is smoke. I get to the end of the block, and I turn around, and all I saw was just this blob of smoke just coming down the block. Papers, people running. I pick up the camera, and I start shooting it. And I'm like, what the hell what is this? What's happening?
I saw after that first tower fell, then groups of school kids evacuating this school right there across from the high school. And I was amazed. The kids seemed rattled, but even more than the kids, the teachers had they had stunned looks on their faces. I remember some crying. I remember seeing people pass us just looking as if they were about to collapse. Just that one man who was sitting there with dust on him, this forlorn look on his face, you knew he had seen horror. His face is just an indelible impression right now in my mind.
It's now 10 o'clock. That means it was roughly an hour after the initial impact, which seemed to impact roughly the top, I would say, 1/4 of the building. And now we see the building has apparently crumbled.
There was chaos for the next few minutes. We had this flow of information coming in now because we had so many of our own people in the area. They were phoning to say how far the dust cloud had spread. There were aerial shots, just seeing this white cloud enveloping all of lower Manhattan. And it was a blur for the next few minutes.
We actually saw a huge portion of that second tower go down, at which point tens of thousands of people started running north along the West Side Highway, and the Esplanade, where people are usually biking and jogging, and there's definitely an evacuation in progress now with everyone headed north. Frightening sight to behold.
New York One's Kristen Shaughnessy was on the phone with us a few moments ago as One World Trade Center literally disintegrated before our eyes. Kristen, I can't tell you how relieved I am to hear your voice.
Thank you very much. It was quite a scene, Pat. As I said, I was looking up at it, and right when we were talking, I saw it come down. And they literally, I have to commend the law enforcement. They got everybody, it seemed, as best they could where I was, out of that area. So now what they're doing is they're evacuating everyone to either Midtown or the Upper East Side. People were lined up here at the phones, and they said, no more phone service. You really have to get out of this area because we don't know what is going to happen next.
I was actually going to try to stay on the phone because in my head, you're not thinking rationally, I guess. I didn't know if everybody understood how bad it was. So I'm thinking if I drop the phone, they're going to be annoyed that we lost this live presence on the phone, which is silly in retrospect, but that's what I was thinking. But when this FBI agent said to me, you got to run, I mean, I didn't think twice because he was running. It wasn't like he was sticking around. He was right alongside me.
And when I told this story many times over the last year or so, I've always said it was a half an hour before we found Kristen. But I was watching the tape the other day, and it was just 7 minutes. And it was the longest 7 minutes ever. And then I heard word in my ear that they had found Kristen and that she was okay. And it was the only time that my voice broke on the air, and I said, I'm very happy to report that Kristen is okay. And we've found her, and I was so relieved and grateful. And so aware that so many people weren't going to have good news that day.
I'm hesitant to get too far into the speculation here, but I would think it unlikely that any commercial pilot would steer his plane into the World Trade Center. He'd more likely crash the plane into the harbor, even if there was a gun to his head. And you've got to wonder if this was organized enough that the hijackers actually had someone capable of flying the airplane.
As soon as I step out of the car and I'm opening the trunk to get my camera, it's like it's snowing down there, you know, and just particles floating around everywhere. And the first person we see is a worker from one of the towers, and he's covered in soot. He has all of this dust and debris on him, and he's just on the corner. He's coughing, you know, he's coughing heavily, like he's choking. We're like, what happened? You know, where were you?
I was in the lobby, just about ready to go outside when we heard a secondary explosion. And we started running toward the center of the building to get away from the glass, and everything, all the glass just shattered, and the place was black with smoke.
The feeling down there, you know, people, it was weird because all I saw were people just standing there, like, with their mouths open, you know, just gawking at it, just staring, you know. They weren't saying anything, they were just looking. And it seemed calm, you know. People weren't, from what I saw, people weren't running away. People were walking.
This is the live picture where you saw two World Trade Center towers standing only an hour ago, and just one of them remaining.
I see Giuliani and all his like security. I think fire commissioner was there. Kerrick was there. And I was like, oh, let me get some shots of this guy walking around, not knowing that he just came out of a building that collapsed. I had no idea. So I get over there and I start filming him. And I did it from a distance, thinking I know by the time I get over there, this cop, you know, security's gonna push me out of the way. But I see other camera crews trying to get close. So I said, well, you know, I'll sneak in right behind them. Don't ask me how, but I get right in front of Giuliani. So it's me, a couple of radio reporters on my right, I think some print guys on my left, and I'm right in the center. And here's Giuliani with Sonny Mandel, Kerrick, Von Essen, all these guys coming towards me, and I'm right in front of them. I can't remember what block. We're walking up the block. I'm walking backwards. No one's with me. I'm by myself. And I guess Giuliani noticed the mic flag, and he asked, hey, are you live? Yeah, I'm live. Sure.
Everyone in the city should remain calm. The very best thing to do right now would be to remain home. If you're outside of southern Manhattan, You should remain where you are. You shouldn't panic. You shouldn't worry. We're doing the best that we can to evacuate southern Manhattan below Canal Street. If you are in southern Manhattan below Canal Street, you should walk north